The council says members of the public must understand that the taxi industry makes a significant contribution to the economy of the country. The council says tensions over transport in Mamelodi have finally been resolved. They say Makhura has also given the assurance that all 55 impounded taxis will be released after drivers produce the relevant documents. And now for more on this story, we are now joined on the line by our reporter, Sipho Stirman. Sipho, thanks so much for joining us and good afternoon. First of all, can you just take us through the details of this agreement that has been reached between the Premier and the taxi operators? Because we have some reports saying that it is a formal agreement and others saying it could be a gentleman's agreement.
Good afternoon. Yes, basically, as you stated there in your intro, there was a meeting late yesterday afternoon that ran into the early evening between the Premier David Makhura and some of the taxi leaders from the South African National Taxi Council, that is Pantako, and the National Taxi Alliance. But basically, the meeting was not only focused on the issues that is here in Pretoria, that is the taxis that were impounded, but they were actually looking at transportation issues in the province in general. And what they actually agreed on was that they are going to establish a committee which will be chaired by the Premier himself that will look at the issues that taxis and other forms modes of transport in the province encounter and be able to deal with them directly to avoid situations that we had in the past couple of weeks where there was violence and there was taxi strikes, leaving commuters without transportation to work. So that is what happened yesterday. There was the agreement that there will be a committee and that committee will be chaired by the Premier and it will meet next week.
But Sipho, at this stage, is it any clear how the taxi industry will be robbed into to be part of this provincial public transport setup?
Well, they haven't really given finer details about it, but they speak a language about modernizing the taxi industry in terms of getting the taxi, because if you remember, the big brouhaha, if I may call it that, with regards to the Mamelodi protest environment that we saw there, was the Autopass buses replacing the Patco bus routes. And that the taxis said that they were promised that they would operate in those routes, but obviously when the taxi drivers operate there, then they will charge taxi fares, which the commuters then cannot afford. So they then said that they need to be subsidized. But then subsidizing the taxi industry is not as easy as subsidizing, excuse me, subsidizing the taxi industry is not as easy as subsidizing companies like what you call this Patco. The taxi industry itself is quite varied, and it's a quite difficult institution for government to come in and subsidize it. So they actually need to establish a lot of committees to streamline the taxi industry itself before it can receive any form of subsidy. So that is why now they've got this committee in place, that it will then come up with the strategies and plans and sort of formulate a plan how then they can incorporate it. As it stands, they haven't done that. The committee will meet on a regular basis to be able to come up with a plan to modernize the taxi industry. There,
however, seems to be confusion, Sipho, with regards to the release of the impounded taxis. You touched on that a little while ago. The associations are saying that the Premier agreed that the taxis will be released, and the authorities appear like they are saying they will not release them until the papers are in order. What is exactly the agreement there?
Well, this is actually quite straightforward. The taxis that were impounded, they were impounded for various violations, such as unroadworthiness or operating without permits, or drivers who don't actually have, taxi drivers who don't actually have driver's license. So now, that is obviously punishable by form of fine. Now, they took these taxis, nearly 60 of them, and for each and every taxi owner to receive their taxi, they have to pay the fine. That's what and the government is firm on that. They say, you have to pay the fine, you have to provide us with a certificate that shows that your vehicle is roadworthy. So now, as we stand, there are actually only 28 taxis that remain there. Some of the taxi drivers, they have come through and they have provided all the required documents, and then only after they've done that, they were able to collect their vehicles. So the ones that are still remaining there, they have 28, and they can also collect them as soon as they pay the fines and they provide the proper documentation. If they do not do so, then they shall not get the taxis. And the fines range between 300 rands and 2,000 rands. Obviously, it varies depending on what the violation was. However, a concern that some of the taxi leaders had actually expressed was that when a taxi driver does not actually have a license, they shouldn't impound the vehicle, because the person that actually should be fined is the taxi driver himself. That a vehicle shouldn't be kept away just because the driver of it did not have a license. They should actually fine the driver but release the vehicle with ease when the owner comes and claims it. So that was the only issue that was there.
And very quickly and finally, Sipho, what has been the reaction from the taxi associations themselves, and can we expect an incident-free Monday morning for commuters in Mamelodi?
Well, we spoke, both Santaco and the National Taxi Alliance were there this morning when the MECs of Transport and Community Safety were viewing the taxis that are still remaining here in Pretoria. And they sounded like they were very assuring, saying that there will be no strikes, there will be no violence whatsoever, and that they will try and encourage their members to actually comply. And they said that the impounding of taxis is actually a blessing in disguise, because it gave them an opportunity to actually look in the mirror and realize that they've actually made some failures on their part in terms of not making sure that drivers actually have driver's license.
All right, we have to end it there. Thank you so much. That was our reporter there speaking to us live from Pretoria. That's Sipho Sterman.